104.7 The Cave, KKLH, Marshfield, Springfield, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Now, it's time for Ned Talk.
Yes, it is time for Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show. Joe Westen, joined in the studio today by Josh Roberts and, of course, the namesake of the show, Ned Reynolds. How are you, sir?
Doing just great, thank you. Hope you guys are doing well on this Saturday evening.
Well, we always start out by talking about weather, even though this is not a weather show. You've got to be enjoying this hot weather, right?
It does not. I will tell you, I don't mean to ruffle anybody's feathers, but it doesn't bother me at all. Not at all.
What about you, Josh?
I'm an air-conditioned gypsy. I like to be inside.
Yes, exactly.
And I have a new nickname for you. You are Joe the Wizard Weston.
Joe the Wizard. Well, why is that?
Because of the board work you're doing here, this wizardry. Magic.
Oh,
you're making the magic happen.
No, it's you're peeking behind the. Don't look behind the curtain.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. All right, let's start out. Let's talk about the Chiefs and the New Orleans Saints last week. I heard it. I didn't watch the game. I was busy, and preseason games are kind of like
Mm-hmm.
But I did hear Andy Reid talk after the game, and he said ones have a lot of work to do. What was your thoughts?
The very same thing. And I'm with you guys. I'm in the majority probably of the individuals who could not see it because it was blacked out. Now, there are ways to get around that.
Yeah.
But,
Listen to it right here.
That's the key, is listening to it. And as Mitch has said during the broadcast, the team didn't come out with a lot of fire. And you can't do that. I don't care who you are, Super Bowl champions or last place team. You can't come out in any game, in any circumstance, and just play mediocre, lackadaisical football. You're going to get beat. Well, the Chiefs' frontline players did just that. They only played, 5 snaps, something like that, and got down the field. I got a kick last week out of Andy Reid saying, we'll play the first quarter. That balderdash. And probably the same thing coming up tonight, although they may play the first quarter tonight. But over and above all that, it was not an exciting performance by the front line. The second string came back and played very well. I thought they played aggressive football, as well they should, because they're vying for a place on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
And down the stretch, of course, it was a fluke that got them beat. But, hey, it is what it is, and that's exhibition football, and you can't put anything into what you see.
Did you watch much of the game, Josh?
In all honesty, I watched the majority of the game casually. I was over at a friend's house, and we were celebrating his brother's birthday. But we had the game on, and we were watching, and it's hard to assess the first stringers because they played one series, basically. They drove the ball down the field, and that was it. I saw a lot of good stuff from the guys fighting to be on that team. The second-string quarterback, I think, played a great game. I'm sorry, what? Gabbert, yeah. I think he did great. I think he played really well. I think the defense played pretty well, but, they're not – I don't think they're going 100% in preseason because they don't want to get hurt. And then the Chiefs had the game won until the third stringer. That poor guy probably isn't going to make the team because of that play, because he threw an interception to a defensive lineman. And you just can't do that.
A little bit about that kid. He played college football at South Florida, Samford, and not to be confused with the team on the West Coast, Samford in Birmingham, Alabama, and ended his career with one season at South Dakota State in the Missouri Valley. Did not play the Bears. They didn't play South Dakota State that year, which was 2021. He's a capable quarterback, but not at this level. And when he threw that interception to, was it D-back or safety that picked it off?
I think it was the defensive lineman, actually, that was breaking through the line to he was kind of shadowing a pulling guard or the running back or something.
Well, let's just say that certainly Mahomes, probably Gabbert, nor Bouchel would have thrown that ball. This kid did. But be that as it may, he's not going to be around very long.
And then that led to New Orleans immediately kicking a field goal to end the game and winning. And it's preseason, so it doesn't really matter. But I did see some good things from the people that are trying to make the Chiefs roster.
Well, as a Chiefs fan, we're used to seeing the Chiefs being almost robotic.
Oh, yeah.
It just that they get the ball, they march down the field, they score. So, do you take anything away, even in preseason for the last few years under Patrick Mahomes? They've done that. Do you take anything away from a team that looked flat?
No, I don't, because they are so accustomed to getting out and winning big and so forth and so on, and doing well at the very start. I think that's probably what went through their mind. We can do whatever we want at whatever time we want. Case in point is the final play, the final snap for Mahomes. His fifth snap, that's all he had, 5 snaps, was a handoff to a running back on kind of a power play. The Chiefs would not have used that in that kind of situation. They would have gone to the air, and I think Andy Reid said, well, we may have made a mistake. Come on. They're not making mistakes. They want to see what these kids can do, and perhaps they showed something, perhaps they didn't. And the same thing is probably going to happen tonight, too.
Well, I read somewhere, I guess, that Andy Reid has said that they'll play a half. The starters will. And I know that you've said that they'll play a quarter.
It's a quarter, I think, is what they're going to play. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think there's so much misinformation that goes out through the NFL, so you never know what exactly is going to happen. Do you think that there's any alarm in the Chiefs' kingdom anywhere because of the defense not looking so good and a little flat team?
Well, the defense will be a little bit different from what it has been in the past. That's the nature of pro football and the nature of player movements and so forth and so on. But no, I think they'll be a very good football team. I think they'll be the best football team. And their offense, it has undergone some changes as well, but you still have the catalyst in there, and the catalyst is Mr. Mahomes, who can do an awful lot. Chiefs may be a high-scoring team. They may give up some points this year. In fact, they probably will.
Yeah.
But they're going to win most of them, if not all.
Josh is our Chiefs naysayer. What do you got to say about this?
I don't think there's anything for Chiefs fans to worry about. I think the expectation level for the Chiefs is at the top because they are at the top. They're the Super Bowl champions. We're riding this wave of success right now. And so the preseason literally means nothing. The preseason is a tryout for players trying to make the team. And you want your starters to get some reps so that they get in form, they get in rhythm, but you don't want them to get hurt. So you're not going to do the things in preseason that you're going to do in the regular season. I don't think there's anything to worry about. I think they looked fine. And if they lose every preseason game, who cares?
Exactly.
It's Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show. We're the pregame show. You'll hear the Chiefs crew. They take over at the top of the hour. I want to get your thoughts, though, on somebody that did look impressive and a guy that you badmouthed last week on this particular program. Josh, Derek Carr looked kind of impressive yesterday.
Yeah, he did, actually.
Yeah,
he played a good game. I think, well, and I guess, when a quarterback like of his caliber, mediocre caliber, moves to a different team, he's got more to prove than most other players on that squad because, he's their starting quarterback, but he hasn't played for him yet. So, yeah, I think he played a little harder than he would have if he had just been another season with the Raiders.
I really feel like Derek Carr is a pretty good quarterback. And he didn't have great success with the Raiders, and that's because he didn't really have a full team in front of him, a team that was together, and they had a lot of disruptions. Don't think they'll have that on the Saints. He is capable of doing a lot of things. He did at Fresno. My goodness sake, he was an outstanding college quarterback. He can do it now, and you must remember, he looked good against the Kansas City Chiefs because there was not a certain individual breathing down his neck, nor will whomever quarterbacks for the Cardinals tonight, probably Clayton Tune, will not have that same individual breathing down. Chris Jones is not there, folks.
Yeah.
He is not there, and there's beginning to be some concern as to whether or not he is going to be there. I think he will, but his absence does mean a lot with that defense.
What's the latest? What have you heard about that?
He's still holding out, obviously, and giving up his $50,000 a session. That's an NFL mandate. That's what you have to find him, and he has to pay that amount. Now, there I'm sure ways around that the NFL kind of turns their back, but that's over and above that. He can afford it. The fact of the matter remains that he and the Chiefs are reported to be quite a distance away from any kind of agreement on a long-term contract. If he's going to play this year, it has to be with the Chiefs, unless they trade him, which they're not going to do. He has to play for them. He's under contract to them. He can do that. He can report to camp. He can get his game paychecks and all that sort of thing and continue in his holdout. And then at the end of the season, he's a free agent.
I think it's completely ridiculous at this point. He's got over, I think they said he's over $1 million in fines. He might be close to $2 million in fines. So he is losing money that he's trying to get right now. It doesn't make any sense. Get your butt into camp. Get your butt in there.
Get your butt in there, boy. Get in there and
play
start playing some
football.
football. That's all we want to see. Everybody play football. Let me ask you, have you heard the number, how far apart they are?
He wants over $30 million, north of $30 million, because that's what the big names, the Aaron Donalds and the kid from the New York Jets, Quinnen Williams, that's what they're all making. There's $30 million over the course of a contract. Well, in this case, it's $30 million a season. They want long-term and a lot of money. Well, the Chiefs have a lot of factors involved. Next year, they'll have many other players who are starters on the team whose contracts will be coming up, and they'll have to negotiate with them. You have a salary cap looming over you. I think they have probably reached a point in which there's no return. I think the Chiefs they are reported, I don't know what the number was, reported to have offered, quote, a sizable presentation, end quote, to Mr. Jones. I would suspect that was probably $26, $27, $28 million a year. My point on this, I'd look at it differently, maybe personally, maybe the way other fans would look at it. My God, how much is enough money?
Right.
Jiminy Christmas, people. That. What are you going to do with that? Well, if you're not fiscally responsible, I guess you could do a lot of things with it. But the fact of the matter remains that is an awful lot of money to be turning down.
I heard the number was around $27 million a season. But, there's so many factors that go into that. First of all, the number one factor is ego.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and Chris Jones, statistically, one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL, if you're not getting paid with these other guys, then that starts to bother you. I mean, that would bother anybody. And secondly is the players. The players never like to give up money in any sport.
Not. Nobody, no professional would. But again, you arrive at a point where how much is enough? And you're absolutely right, Joe, and this is what we have pointed out time and time again. It is the ego factor, the most destructive element of all our lives. And when you have your ego and, I want to do better than that guy. Nothing wrong with being competitive, but when it comes down to whether or not you're ever going to manifest what you do because of that ego, yes, there are distinct problems.
My rebuttal to that is Super Bowl rings are the biggest boost for your ego.
Yeah.
And if you have to take a little bit less personal money knowing that you're on a team that has the best chance to win another Super Bowl, I would do that. That's just me, though.
Yeah, well,
and there have been plenty of instances where the top player on a team restructured their contract so that they could keep other players that were integral to them winning.
Mahomes has done that.
Mahomes has done that himself. So Chris Jones needs to take that as his example and say, hey, where else are you going to go where you got a chance to be the best?
Well, he's got 2 Super Bowl rings, so he doesn't really – there's nothing to prove there as far as he's concerned. So now it's in the NFL, the thing that they always say is now it's time to get paid. And now it's time for Chris Jones to get paid. I mean, if the Chiefs want to keep him, they're going to have to step up to the table, but that's going to mean some tough decisions going forward.
With other players.
With other players, yeah.
And that ultimately is what kills a dynasty over time, is maintaining the salaries of all these players.
Okay, so let me ask you guys this. You're sitting in the general manager's chair. You're Brett Veach. What do you do? Do you make, go this season, try to make another offer, try to sign him at the end of the year, or do you just, at the end of the year say bye-bye, we'll try to figure this out?
Yes, the latter. That's it. That's what I would do, because you have to take into consideration what you're doing here. He's a defensive end, fine player. He has had groin injuries in the past. Who knows what's going to happen? That's an intangible. But he's also 29 years old, and that is not an intangible. That's getting up there. Yes, D linemen, offensive linemen can play at an advanced age, and we're talking in relative terms here. Mm-hmm. But you're also coming up against huge bodies who can cause injury and so forth and so on. That's the nature of the game. So you have to put everything into a ratio. What is likely to happen? Can we afford to do this over a number of years? Do we take a chance? And if I were that individual, I'd say, hey, bring him in this year. Let's pay him a little bit of extra if we can, and then say farewell.
What about you, Josh?
I would say you make your final offer to him and say, this is what you're going to get if you want to play for us. Otherwise, you can just sit and accrue fines all season. That's what I would do.
It's hardball.
Do you see,
I would take a hard
yeah.
line stance at this point because it's getting kind of ridiculous to me.
Well, I mean, do you see a situation like we saw with Tomlinson a couple of years ago where maybe he just sits out the year?
I would be, excuse me a second, guys. Saturday evening is getting to me here all of a sudden. I would be surprised if he does that because he is an athlete and he knows how much those game checks, those regular season game checks are. I'd be a little surprised, but you know, I'm I'm an old man. I'm beyond being surprised anymore.
Right.
So anything can happen. LaDainian Tomlinson was a much bigger risk because he was a running back. And now you have a guy who's a lineman here. And he takes their lengthy breaks before he sees a whole lot of action, and he can kind of call his own shots, so to speak. I would be surprised if he sits out. Yes.
What about you, Josh?
I would be surprised. I mean, the thing is, that's only going to hurt his stock if he sits out a whole year because then he's lost a whole season. He hasn't played a whole season. You know, that's another year on him age-wise without being at game speed. So I think that would be a mistake on his part. But, I'm with Ned. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised with anything.
And we have to make an amendment. Le'Veon Bell.
Le'Veon Bell, I'm sorry about that.
Not LaDainian.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Ned, let me ask you this really quickly. I wanted to get your report, your take on Justin Ross, a guy that we've been watching. He was kind of a cheap pickup for the Kansas City Chiefs, a guy that had a lot of talent but a big injury in college. And now he had an injury in camp this week. Is that what happened?
He did, but he came back the next day.
Okay.
And he jogged onto the field, showed no signs of injury. Mike and I pointed this out on our show, and there is a term that's used in football now, carted off. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely, vehemently disagree with the use of that particular description for taking a guy off the field, carted off, because immediately the fans, oh, my God, he was carted off, the devastating injury. He sat in the front seat of the car when he went off. He had some kind of a tweaking probably of a muscle or a nerve or whatever the case might be. And when he got in the training room, they said, this is nothing. You can go right on back, which he did the next day. Jogged on, went through his drills and so forth and so on. Now, having said that, Ross needs to take care of himself, and he knows that. He's had the neck fusion. He's had massive other problems, including, I believe, a broken ankle, if I'm not mistaken. So he knows he's injury prone. He's not one who is going to the sidelines with any injury. That's not the case. He wants to get out and play because he is a talented individual. But he does need to be very careful with what he does because those tight-muscled guys who are very strong and very wiry like Justin Ross is are also prone to a lot of muscle problems.
Mm-hmm.
When we come back, we'll check in with what's going on in Major League Baseball. It is Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
At the top of the hour, Chiefs Radio Network will take over with Mitch Holtis, Danon Hughes, Dan Israel, Art Haynes. Yes, it was so nice to hear Art back last week. Right, Ned?
Art does a great job.
Yeah, he's
great
the best.
job, and yes, it was nice to hear him back.
So we're glad to see Art. He was carted off the field at one point, but he's back.
He's
he
back.
shook off that injury, and now he's back, and we're so glad to hear Art. If you're out there listening, which I know you're not because you're preparing for the game, but thank you, Art, for doing such a great job. They take over at the top of the hour. Chiefs kickoff is right around 7 o'clock. They're playing the Arizona Cardinals tonight out in Scottsdale. Is that where they play at? Or Tempe?
Glendale.
Glendale.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was a Dale somewhere.
You guys are Glendale graduates, and you don't even know where the games are being played. Come on.
Well, it's not our games.
Is that the St. Louis football Cardinals?
The very same, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I liked them when they had Neil Hart or Neil Lomax
Yeah,
or
amongst Jim Hart.
Otis Anderson,
Mel Gray,
Mel Gray.
Roger Worley.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Those were
guys.
the days. The
Yeah.
cardiac cards.
They
Exactly.
absolutely were.
So last night there was a baby bird made it up to the big leagues, Mason Wynn. And kind of an eventful first hit, didn't he?
This was, and I don't blame the individual involved, Pete Alonso. I think he didn't know. Here, Mason Wynn gets his first big league hit, which is a scratch hit. It's a little bleeder. Now, keep in mind, Mason Wynn's very quick. Little bleeder bouncer down the third base line. Third baseman came in, made the play, barehanded pickup through, but it was way late. And that is his first big league hit. It kind of annoyed the Mets a little bit. Not the fact that it was his first hit. They didn't know that. But just to have a little bleeder like that, so the ball gets tossed around. And somebody yelled at Alonso, hey, throw it in, throw the ball in, which he deciphered as throwing it out of play. He threw it in the stands.
Oh, no.
He threw it over the screen, and the Mets, the Cardinals were immediately up and on. This is kid's first ball. And, of course, the protocol in baseball is he gets that baseball.
Yeah. It's on the TV right here. We're watching it as it happens in the studio, and you see and then Alonso, kind of sums up the Mets season. He just frustrated, and he just, here we go, just going to throw that up in the stands, and then
he did not know what he was doing.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. Have you ever done anything like that? You were just done just like a total bonehead move like that?
In broadcasting, heavens, yes, they've done that.
Do something like that on a daily basis.
almost a daily basis, yes. Now, to the fans' credit, gave the ball back, and Mason Wynn, who was laughing about the whole thing, he thought it was funny. And Alonso said, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that was his first hit. My bad. And he took full blame for it. He felt badly. But he felt a little less badly because the Mets won the game 7-1.
Yeah, they took care of business.
The Cardinals, obviously at this point in the season, they're playing for next year. They brought up Mason Wynn. They're going to see what some of these guys have in the tank. They're going to evaluate people throughout the year. Hey, as a fan, and Ned, I know you say you're not really a fan, you're a reporter, but if you kind of step back and I know you've followed the Cardinals for years and you're a little bit of a fan, how hard is that to watch?
The fact that they're losing, is that what you're making reference to?
Well, losing or just watching a team that's, as a player would call it, playing out the string.
They are going through the motions. That is not a conscious effort on them. They want to win. Every game you play, you want to win and go out and do your very best. Subconsciously, they know they're not in it. They're 15 games under 500. Not out of first place, 15 games under 500 with about 39 to play, and that's impossible. Nothing's impossible, but that's a huge barrier to have to overcome. This is in the back of their minds. I think probably the way it manifests itself is if they're going to lose, then the loss is not quite as painful to them from a physical standpoint as if they were in contention. But does it affect their play? Not at all. I think they go out there and give their very best. I thought Mason Wynn played very well at shortstop, made some nice plays, did have a hurried throw to home plate in which the catcher couldn't hold on to the ball, and the run scored because there's a run that didn't make any difference in the game. But over and above all that, he's a good player. We saw him play down here with Jordan Walker. We saw the two of them in combo with the Springfield Cardinals. They are talented, first-class athletes who will do very well. And I think Mason Wynn comes from a pretty good family down in Pine Bluff. He went to Watson Chapel, and Watson Chapel High School down in Arkansas dominates a lot of sports scenes. And had committed to Arkansas, committed to play. And that huge bonus money comes along, and who's going to turn that down?
Right.
Nobody.
Right.
So the fact of the matter remains that I think he's going to be a fine player.
How are your Cubs doing?
They lost to the Royals last night, which is disappointing, but they're 3 games back from Milwaukee, and they're in third place right now. They dropped below Cincinnati by a game, but Cincinnati's played 2 more games than them, so they can make up some ground still.
I'll tell you, too, Josh, those teams are going to be playing amongst each other here in the final month. Cardinals have games with Cincinnati. They have games with Pittsburgh. Do not have any games with the Cubs.
No, they finished that, yeah.
But they do have games with the Brewers. So St. Louis is capable of really forging a mark not necessarily for themselves, but who's going to win that Central Division. They'll have a lot to say about it.
Well, they're not going to do anything to help the Cubs, and I don't expect them to.
One thing that doesn't really work out for the Cardinals this year is I know that they would probably like it to be the old days when the September call-ups happen, and you could virtually bring up a whole nother team to play, and they've limited those numbers now. But it would be kind of nice to see some more of the younger talent from Memphis and from here in Springfield come in and play.
That's a very good point, but no, you're not allowed to do that. You can bring up, I believe it's 2 or 3, something like that, of extra players. And the thinking behind that was that the championship teams, well, they could bring up and load up their roster and give the regulars a good chance to relax, and that wasn't fair to the other teams and so forth and so on. So it's kind of trying to play an even scale, so to speak. But those players who have performed well in the minor leagues do get a chance to play out in Arizona if they're invited out there, and that Arizona Fall League is highly competitive and I think probably very much judged by the scouts around Major League Baseball. So there is that chance. No, it's not at the Major League level, but it is at a pretty good level nonetheless.
It just seems like yesterday that we were, all the promise of spring was in front of us. Now we're, as a Yankee and Cardinal fan, we're sitting here with the reality of late August that our teams are not competing.
This one hits me, Joe, and I've always decried this philosophy. Oh, those April games, they don't make a difference. Au contraire.
They do.
You take a look at the Cardinals. At the end of April this year, they were 14 games under 500. Where are they now? 15 games under 500. They have played even baseball right up until now, which tells you about the capabilities they have. They are not a great team. They're not well structured in terms of their lineup and in terms of key individuals who may have been a little overhyped. That's all part of the deal. But they haven't played together as a team, in my opinion. You have the two cornerstones. You have Goldschmidt and Arenado there. Good individuals. Your pitching staff is not good. They haven't played well. And now you've gone ahead and traded Jack Flaherty and Jordan Montgomery and people of this caliber and Jordan Hicks. You traded him as well. So what do you have? A makeshift pitching staff that's simply really not all that capable. Adam Wainwright, he pitched well the other night. Didn't have any backing at all, but he pitched okay against a team that has a pop gun attack. Now, put him in. I think his next start is going to probably be, I'm going to guess, maybe against Pittsburgh on Wednesday in Pittsburgh. They can hit the ball, or maybe a little bit later on. But regardless of that, I'm glad to see the guy at least pitch well, although I don't think he's going to be able to get his 200 victories.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Alec, who's not with us today, by the way, Alec, here's what he's missing for today's game. He's playing Madden today. That's what he's doing with a really good friend of his. They do a fantasy draft, and then they play an entire season a day. So that's why Alec is missing the show today. I think that's a pretty lame excuse. But I was talking to Alec about that, and he said he felt like that Wainwright wouldn't get it, that really, there's just not been a lot of luck on his side. When he has pitched well, the Cardinals have not played well. They blew a game that he had a lead in when he left after 5 innings. They eventually won that game, and then when the other side's been true, when the Cardinals have played well, he's not pitched well. So it's been tough for him.
It's not in the stars.
How close is he?
2.
Oh, he's 2 wins away?
Mm-hmm. Has 198 career victories. 200 is kind of the hallmark for post-career honors, Hall of Fame, and things of that nature. He'll be in the Cardinals Hall of Fame, but whether or not he qualifies for Cooperstown, I would be a little surprised. But over and above all that, he wants that 200 career victories. And at this point, with probably, I'm going to guess, about 5 or 6 more starts, and that may be exaggerating things, it's going to be a little tough for him.
Yeah, maybe he would be better if they moved him into a long relief role.
But does that do you any good? Now, here's the scenario that may
pick up some wins that way.
Let's say the Cardinals get off to a big 10-0, 11-0 lead, and he's pitching. You let him go for 5 innings because that's the criteria. Now you have to pitch 5 innings, and take him out, get him out of there, and hope they maintain, which they probably would, the lead. That way you'd get him a win. Of course, you have to rely on your offense getting a big win. Or secondly, you can bring him in relief in a close game and hope your team takes the lead after that, then he would get the win.
Yeah.
But that's all very problematic.
Yeah, neither one of those scenarios are working too well for the Cardinals this year.
Right there, no.
When we come back, we'll figure out something to talk about as we take you up to the top of the hour when the Chiefs radio network takes over. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Mitch Holtis, Dan Israel, Danon Hughes, Josh Klingler, and Art Haynes coming up at the top of the hour. Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. Until then, your local live sports talk show, the Chiefs in Arizona this evening. Game number 2. Kind of one of the things I like about this whole shortened preseason is that I think it accelerates the drama a little bit as far as players making the club.
Oh, for sure.
Staying on the club, it's like a half season of Survivor instead of a full season.
Well, the youngsters, and you can put them in that category, or the free agents, the key free agents, are playing very hard. They want their place. They want that NFL paycheck. And I think you'll probably see that with the Arizona Cardinals tonight. Arizona is 1-0. They won their first game, beat Denver last week 18-17 with 15 points in the fourth period. Now, Kyler Murray won't play. He is definitely out. He is coming back from knee surgery, and they're not about to have him put his health and his career in the way in an exhibition game, especially game number 2. So he won't play. Clayton Tune will probably be the starting quarterback. He's a kid out of Houston University who is vying for a place on the roster. And there are several other key elements of the Arizona Cardinals attack. James Conner is healthy. He's their key running back. Probably will play. But this is not, unfortunately for the Cardinals, not a real good Arizona ball club. Kansas City will be favored. Kansas City should win this game, everything being equal. But over and above all that, hey, they're playing on the same field that they won the Super Bowl on last February, and that is a return to familiar territory, to be very honest about it, and they may get the Super Bowl vibes when they go up there. I think Kansas City is victorious tonight.
We're getting our first glimpses at some of the new rule changes and some of the stuff that's, every year in football. I think that's one of the things that makes football exciting is that they are try to be on the cutting edge as far as innovating with the sport, and they've changed the kickoff rule. Now, I don't know that that's an innovation. I think most people consider it a step backward. Explain the rule to us.
All right. Now, first of all, a fair catch in kickoff has always been there. It wasn't used very often, but you could always make a fair catch. The trouble is, if you make that fair catch on a kickoff, the ball is dead right where it's caught, which sometimes is the 1 yard line, sometimes the 2 yard line. Therefore, you're not going to call a fair catch when it's that deep. You're going to run the ball and take it back upfield as far as you can. The NFL has done some research into kickoff returns and determined that there are X number of percentage of knee injuries that occur on kickoff returns. And this doesn't hold true for punts, but it does for the kickoff. All right, X number, they feel, they being the NFL officials, that this can be cut down. This is a 1 year rule that they put in. So if you call for a fair catch on the kickoff, you make the fair catch, and that's always been the rule, but now the ball automatically goes to the 25 yard line, and that's where you start the line of scrimmage. That is the rule. Is it effective? Well, it's only been around for one game now, or actually 2 in the Hall of Fame game, but I think it has some merit to it if you're looking to make a change and reduce any of the possibility of injury. You can do that, but you have to understand this is a game of contact. So interesting things can happen, frequently do. Is that to say that if a player makes the catch on a kickoff, he can't run it back? Of course not. You can run him back out of the end zone, run him back from anywhere. But if you want to fair catch it, you do, and the ball will automatically go to the 25.
Josh, what do you think about this?
From a player safety standpoint, I can see where they're coming from. From an excitement of the game standpoint, it takes away another element of excitement because you're going to have fewer huge, long kickoff returns for touchdowns and stuff like that. But I get it. I mean, They don't want these guys to get annihilated looking up to catch a ball.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that will cut down on injuries, which means that player can play more games, more plays, maybe make some spectacular plays that way. So I don't know. I mean, kickoffs are kickoffs. It doesn't matter to me.
There was a great decrying of this. I mean, almost every NFL special teams coach said, "What on earth are they doing?
Yeah.
They're taking away this is our bread and butter." So there's always going to be a certain element that is not happy with whatever the rule change is.
Sure. Well, but I like the fact they can still run it back. They just can't do a fair catch.
Correct.
And so what that means is if they think they can get past the 25, they're not going to fair catch it.
Oh, heavens no.
And most of those guys think that they can get past 20. And you know, let's be honest, when they moved up the line for where the kickoff is at now, most of the kickers kick through the end zone.
Yeah, most of them are touchbacks anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what the percentage is. I
bet it's huge, though.
Yeah, I mean, kickoff returns are not what they used to be.
I think what it's also going to do is bring about a lot of squib kicks where the individual will have to run it then.
Right.
There's no choice. Keep in mind now, this is not punts. This is just the kickoff.
Right.
Yeah, I saw some teams went to that pop-up kickoff last year a little bit and to keep maybe pinning some teams back that way rather than giving up the ball at the 25-yard line.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe that's, I don't know. It's tough to say. It's so hard because, you used the term wussification last week when we did the show, Ned. But it's so frustrating when you look at a team that has a dynamic player and then that player is taken out on just some random play.
Right.
Yeah. So it's tough. Now, Josh, you were talking about something interesting that's developed with the helmets this year in the preseason.
Well, yeah, for the last few years in training camp, they've been using these pads that they put over the helmet. They're called Guardian caps. And they've determined that in preseason and in training camp, that has cut down the rate of concussions by 52%. And so the executives of the NFL are considering that maybe someday soon they will wear those in the games. Because when they first started doing it, they only did it with linemen and receivers, I believe. And then this year they expanded it to running backs and pretty much everybody in training camp. And they've cut down concussions by 52%. So that's a significant decrease. So they're going to look ridiculous if they wear them in games.
How's the logo work with those?
Yeah, I don't know. They'll figure that out. The logo will be sticking up on the top or something. It'll be like on a little spring.
Like a little spring, just flipping back and forth as they run down the field.
But guys, this is really interesting because it does represent the metamorphosis of the game. When I was a kid, if you wore a face mask, it was because you had a broken nose or a facial injury. You didn't even wear them. And the helmets were nowhere near, not even close to what they are now. But, again, keep in mind the athletes are all better.
Oh, yeah.
More physical and quicker.
When I played football, they told you put your face mask in the other guy's chest.
Yeah, exactly.
And so everybody who's done that can remember what it feels like the first time your neck snaps back from doing that. So I mean the game has evolved to try to protect these players from concussions and neck injuries and head injuries. This may be the next step. And maybe they can engineer them a little differently to where the logo looks better on them or can actually be put on. I don't know. But 52% decrease in concussions in just training camp, that is a huge difference.
Well, you just like to see guys not suffer with the post-concussion syndrome like several players have. I mean, it's just Junior Seau, the guy that really comes to mind to me. You see so many tragic stories from the NFL of guys being hit in the head. And one of the things that I've seen stories about lately is that soccer is also seeing an increase in post-concussion injury because of the header.
Yes.
But there's nothing they can do about that unless they just eliminate it from the sport.
Right. Well, I mean, it would be tough in soccer because they'd have to either soften the ball, which then you're not going to get the velocity from a header that you're getting now.
The use of hands.
Oh, come on.
See, it's not going to happen.
That means it's not the same game. I mean, I don't know what the solution is there. At least in football, there's an equipment thing that can be adjusted to try to help that. I know that I think it was it's been years now. The University of Washington developed a sensor system for helmets, and it measures impact. And if it was over a certain level of impact, they would pull the players off of the field to give them concussion protocols and all that. And that decreased their amount of concussions by like 65 or 70%. And at the time, they offered that technology to the NFL, and the NFL declined to take it. They offered to give it to them, not sell it to them, and they said no thanks.
No, we don't want that. Why would we want that? Why do you Ned, you don't remember this, but Josh, you might. A few years ago there was a video game that came out. One of the things they always try to do in the sports video game is try to create that illusion that you're actually playing. And so the big feature, and this was probably 15 years ago, was they added that you would be inside the helmet for the kick returner. And it was honestly terrifying because you would look up watching for the ball, and then you'd catch it and you'd snap your head back down, and there'd be somebody right on top of you. And I can't even imagine what that's like in real life.
Just think if they did that on a VR headset now.
Oh my gosh. Wouldn't it? People would be crashing through their living rooms.
Right.
When we come back, we will do our picks for the game. You are listening to Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show.
Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
And that radio network takes over here in just a few minutes. Dan Israel, Mitch Holtis, Dana Hughes, Josh Klingler. Who else? I got about 10,000 people on that show. And Art Haynes, that's who will be there. Chiefs and Arizona Cardinals, Saturday Night Football. Joe Westen, Ned Reynolds, Josh Roberts, Saturday evening, talking about football. So, will you be watching the game tonight?
This old man will not be. I have another engagement.
Spicy.
Oh, no.
Salacious.
Entertaining.
Entertaining and salacious.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Ned Reynolds is cryptic. He won't tell you things. He'll just leave it out there for you, and you just go.
That's what we love about you, Ned. The mystery.
The mysteries.
There's no mystery involved, but it's not something anybody gives a damn about.
He's a mystery. He's a mystery man of intrigue. Well, I mean, you're not going to watch the game, but what's your pick for the game?
I think the Chiefs win this one rather easily if you can win an exhibition game easily. Arizona, Kyler Murray won't be in there. They're missing several other of their regular players. Arizona did win their first game, beat Denver 18-17, but still, this is the Kansas City Chiefs you're playing, and a good Kansas City Chiefs team play. I think you will see the first unit in there probably for one quarter, because this is the second of the three exhibition games. Next one is also coming up Saturday, but I believe check the schedule. I think it's a noontime game, is it not? Up in
It
Kansas
is.
City?
We will. We'll be on at 10 a.m. You're ruining 2 hours of my Vinyl Club show on Saturday.
No, we're not.
Yeah. Yes, you are. You are.
But I think that Arizona doesn't really have the manpower to be able to stay up, even in an exhibition game. So I look for the Chiefs to win this one by probably about, let's say, 34-17.
When are the cut dates? Have they gone through any cut dates yet?
There's only one, and that's right before the season starts. I think it's maybe 5 days before the season starts is when they have the mandatory cut down of everybody.
Oh, wow.
Wow, 1 day. There used to be this tiered thing.
Yeah.
It's not anymore.
Okay, I don't know how I feel about that. It's a big day for the
rough.
Unemployment Office, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a lot of anxiety for those guys.
How many players can they keep on that taxi squad?
53. A total team of 53.
And that includes your taxi squad?
No, the traveling team is usually 47. That's what they dress.
No, I mean the taxi squad, the extra players.
Yeah,
that you keep.
that's it.
Oh,
Then it's what?
So 53 includes them? Okay.
Yeah, to my knowledge, that's it.
Wow.
That's that's tight.
That's
When you consider what you're paying those guys.
Well, yeah.
And you know what they make? About $11,000 a day. And your taxi squad players, your practice players, are getting over $200,000 a year.
Josh, there you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
I should have stuck with football, I guess. Nah, that doesn't matter. I wasn't good enough. I was too slow.
All right, Josh, which are you watching the game tonight?
I am. I'm going to watch the game. And I'm not impressed with Arizona beating the Donkeys by a point.
The Donkeys.
So I think the Chiefs are going to win this one pretty easily. Hopefully they don't have any bonehead mistakes at the end and give it up like they did against New Orleans. But like I said, I was really impressed with the guys trying to make the team beyond the starters. So I think they'll play tough. I think they'll score some points, and I think this will probably be like a 28-10 Chiefs win.
Were you guys surprised that my prediction of 16-1 didn't work out last week? Were you surprised by that at all?
I was shocked by the one. Yeah, I was shocked that nobody scored 1 point.
I wanted to see it because it would have been an all-time first.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the Chiefs will win, and I think they'll win 24-2.
They're going to give up a safety.
I think actually history will be made twice tonight. There won't be a safety. There'll be 2 1-point plays.
Ooh.
Joe.
And then, hey, are you going to get up at 5 a.m. to watch the Women's World Cup final with me?
I am not.
Okay.
I am not.
Spain versus England.
No, I am not getting up at 5 a.m. to watch it. Who you got in that?
I'm going to pick Spain.
I'm going to pick England. Who you got, Ned?
Who's playing?
Spain and England. Yeah.
All right, that's Ned Talk. Enjoy the Chiefs pregame. Thanks to Brian Timble, Corbin Campbell, Mike the Intern, and Nick Fury. We'll be back on the air 10 a.m. Saturday for the next Chiefs preseason game.